After rolling.
Probably.
Do it. We have corn?
All right, we're gonna let's like the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Play ball. Good evening, everybody. May 8th, 2025. This is the date for the regular monthly meeting of the Smithfield Township Planning Commission. All right, Julia, I guess you will be taking those for us this evening.
You always do a great job.
Thank you very much. All right, okay, no minutes present yet. We have everybody that's here. I don't know where Doug went. He was literally right behind me, but I'm sure he'll be walking up here in a moment.
It's in the parking lot.
He was in the parking lot, yeah, he was there. I think he was finishing up, yeah. All right, no minutes at the moment. Old business, I guess we have two items that are requested tabling. 3 Point Garden, the major subdivision, they have requested.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Doug. All right, so they've requested that to be tabled, but it does look like we have a deadline of May 28th on this thing, so. Have they put in a request for an extension to them?
I've spoken with, them and, one of their staffers is currently out of the office. We will have one in our hands next week. Now they will be placed on the board of supervisors meeting for denial.
Okay. All right, those on them. All right, now the other one that's requested to be tabled.
Did we start already?
Yeah.
Oh.
Smithfield Sewer Authority, I guess that's gonna be tabled until next month as well. We have plenty of time on that one. All right. Now I'll simply make a motion that we table, A and C, the 3 Point Garden and.
Make a motion, we table the 3 Point Garden major subdivision. We're doing one at a time.
Okay. Is that how you wanna do it?
Yeah.
All right, I'll second it. Any discussion? In favor? Table.
Make a recommendation, we table the Smithfield Sewer Authority LPP.
Okay. Yeah, that land development plan, I'll second the Smithfield Sewer Authority tabling. Any discussion? All in favor? Yeah, we've got it. Okay, now we have everybody. Hello. All right, so the other thing on our whole business, we have a water gap wellness land development plan with a June deadline. I presume we haven't heard anything from them, right?
Didn't you get an email today, Julia?
Today?
I spoke with, Jim Kelly. He had initially said that they were thinking of tabling. And then he got back to me, over the voicemail, or over a phone call, excuse me, and said that he spoke with the applicant and they wanted it to be on the agenda for this evening. We did receive correspondence from Jim Kelly, for an extension for the project. I got my wires crossed.
No, I saw the extension, but I didn't hear whether they were coming in.
Yeah, Jim had originally told me that they were not going to be here, and then he called back maybe 15 minutes later and said, no, they would. I haven't heard from them since. Is there anyone present from that?
I don't see anyone.
Oh,
I don't see anybody, I don't see anybody than the applicant.
that's what I got. Yes.
Where's he going?
I don't know.
Probably.
I did.
Okay. For the moment. What are we waiting on? We've got two more again, bonus.
Just come back to it?
Hmm?
Want to just come back to it?
Yes. Oh, let's just wait a minute and see what comes. I don't. No, put it in. Let's give them a minute. So as far as the table, that is the board. We're not gonna move on to new business. All right, let's do this. What's the sketch plan one? What? What, Pika? There you are. Yeah. All right, please, start off. How you doing? What are we doing? And why are we gonna sketch plan? What's up?
I wanna buy the piece of land from that gentleman.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
How you doing?
Okay.
You? Good, thank you. All right, so what are we proposing here?
Subdividing off approximately 17 point something acres. This gentleman who has a lot in Smithfield Village,
Okay.
which will abut that.
What do you want? You wanna make it all one piece?
Yeah, it's attached to my house,
It's
yeah.
in Clean and
Yeah.
Green Act 319, so
Yeah.
he will unite his lot with the 17 acres which he's purchasing, so that it all ends up in Act 319. That's what's in yours.
Yeah, but they're still gonna tax the same, the acre around the house, the same, no matter what.
No, okay, but on the house acreage, it's 1.33 and I wanna buy 17.17, so.
I mean, okay, but I don't know why I have to subdivide it, I do that. To erase the lot, line and make it all one.
You subdivide.
No, I'm
No,
sorry.
he's subdivided.
No, I know that, but I understand what the point is,
You're combining, right?
The point of,
to combine them together, whether you own one lot or two, whether you own 17 acres and 1.3 acres.
I think Gary subdivided.
Yeah.
it.
No, I know that, I understand.
Yeah, but the mayor told me that's the best way to do,
Okay,
so I don't know, so.
is that, it's not,
Honestly, with the subdivision is,
it's a long subdivision, but you go into the subdivision and then development.
They're combining this with this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
I
what,
mean, you know, the subdivision is the sub add.
I understand, but.
it's still.
But it doesn't taste-
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
From the remaining.
Okay.
land. Oh, okay. I see.
so what's the best idea?
You're adding lot 5 to lot 1,
Okay,
right? Okay.
Yeah, after they create lot one.
They have
To create.
They have to
17
create lot
acres.
1 first
Right.
from another property.
Yeah.
Look
Look
at
at the
the-
left-hand corner.
Oh, so you own up there too?
Yeah, Gary.
Oh, yeah, then it is
Yeah.
a subdivision.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right, makes sense. And you're saying that this lot here is in clean green?
Yes.
Okay, this is not.
The
no,
short piece
That's
is,
good.
the short piece is quite large at that top, this is the top of all.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you gonna keep it in clean? Green?
yes, yeah, mostly, yeah, of course.
Okay.
I just want it for my wife, she wants to have more land for chickens and stuff.
I see the issues with it.
No, I mean, I don't think there is, it just has to be formally,
Accepted.
this is just a sketch plan.
Yeah, yeah.
So you'll have to comply with all the rest of the submission,
Mm-hmm,
with all of the submission requirements.
okay,
And then it'll get reviewed by the, by the township and, it'll go through the normal review process.
okay, but who's gonna do this, my surveyor, probably?
And you got to ask whoever you have doing it for you, that's you, not us, so.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian Corbett.
Is it Brian?
Yeah, Brian,
Yeah.
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 We're just accepting it as a sketch plan.
We're just looking at it as case, so we don't have to accept anything, because there's not gonna be any formal engineering, review. Until he says he puts it all in, but I mean, I don't necessarily see that there's gonna be any
No problem.
major impediments.
Normally, Mr. Chair, that plan comes in because there's a question about whether they can do this or that.
Yeah, but I
Pretty
don't,
straightforward, so
It
I'm
looks-
not quite
I was
sure.
gonna say, it looks pretty straightforward to me, right?
I'm not quite sure why it's even a sketch.
Yeah, yeah.
what?
Well, I was to make sure if there was any question, that's what,
Oh, okay.
that's what Brian's, theory was.
Okay.
I think it's mostly a matter of putting the rest of the formal things on the survey, resubmitting it, but I'm not seeing anything.
So what's you think maybe it's
You can get
better?
back with Brian Fortwright, because the rest of the submissions within the county, under the county code.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, shouldn't be a problem.
okay.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys. All right, now we have water gap wellness season. All right, keep on review. We'll go back to 5B, old business, water gap wellness. Plan development plan. All right. 4. Ron, I don't even know where we quite left off with this. Did this have to go through, if I remember correctly, did you guys have to go through the zoning hearing board?
No.
Okay. Well, was there a question, John? On the use of the place?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think the use determines whether in fact you can have an accessory building as a recreational building. And I'm just saying that the use, I think we asked for the use, we got a couple different answers, we've got to pin that down. Maybe the zoning officer has to pin it down, but I think that's a pivotal question. The rest is pretty much, I'll say, is straightforward. It's a matter of complying with our comments, which I didn't see anything in there that they couldn't comply with, but I think the use has to be.
Could you elaborate on that? What do you mean?
Okay, if you look at my comment letter, which is in your book, and you look under zoning ordinance comments number 1.
Excuse me, John, that's the letter of May 2nd, your
Yeah,
third.
I'm looking for
That's
it,
correct.
I make sure I have it.
Zoning ordinance comments?
Yes, comments number 1. I'll read my response to
Okay,
you.
go ahead.
Rather lengthy.
Here we go.
The plan has been revised to now note the existing use as an inn and conference center. Part 10 of the zoning ordinance definitions defines inn as, quote, a combination of eating, lodging, and recreational enterprises for extended stay vacations on land area of 10 acres or more, but not including any enterprise where more than 50 lodging accommodations are provided. This project has a history of different land uses assigned to it. I believe when it was operating as a golf course, it was considered a resort use. When that closed, an application was submitted to the township
I'm trying to find her.
rehabilitation center. That use initially granted by the township has been litigated in the courts. We do not know if the current applicant has been issued a use and occupancy permit to operate as an inn and conference center. If the township did issue that permit, that means the use has been changed from the previous resort use and from the drug and alcohol rehabilitation use. The township zoning officer should opine on this. It is noted that an inn is only permitted by conditional use, and we don't recall this applicant having gone through a conditional use hearing for an inn. A conference center is not listed as a permitted use or an accessory use in the R1 zoning district.
So we don't know what other facilities being used?
Correct.
Correct.
You guys comment on that?
The facility is being used as an inn. And that's what we've stated on the plan, inn and conference center. We contacted the zoning officer back in February. Mr. Pulse met with him and he informed him that the use was an inn. We requested that he provide confirmation in writing, and repeated emails and phone calls have not yielded an answer to
Is
that
that with the
question.
previous zoning officer or with the current one that we have?
The current zoning officer.
Okay.
I'm able to comment on this a little bit. Matthew is still in the process of reading through all of the litigation associated with this case. to make sure any determination that he puts in writing is consistent with how it's been.
Yeah, it's got a long history.
A very long history.
He's digging, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I'm sorry, is this in? I was once told that it wasn't it wasn't a drug rehabilitation center.
That's correct.
It
It never
is
was
it
a
now
drug
an in?
rehabilitation center.
Is it now an in?
It still isn't in.
Okay, so in other words, it's at a conference center. So,
Yes.
so if my company went there and took 16 rooms for a 2-week conference, we can use the conference center and those rooms for that purpose because it's in there. Is that correct?
He'll have to answer that question.
Buying buyer will, yes.
And if one person wanted to stay a night there, they could stay a night there?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you paying the hotel tax to the state on that?
I do know we do have a hotel tax license hanging on the wall, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, I have a few questions about the comments. The one point was, the project has a history of different land uses assigned to it. I believe when it was operating as a golf course, it was considered a resort. Is there documentation that the township has that supports that position? Or is that just hearsay?
That is my comment. I don't have documentation, but everything that exists at the time of the adoption of the zoning ordinance is a use. The golf course was in existence at the time of the adoption of the zoning ordinance, and it is a permitted use within that zoning district. So that's how I arrived at that conclusion. I don't know that there's any formal documentation beyond that.
Does there need to be for them to operate as an inn?
Well, Wolf Hollow was 100 years old before these guys bought it, so there's not gonna be anything on there but that, so.
Right.
And then when the golf course closed, the comment says that it was they applied for as a drug and alcohol rehab center.
Right.
It's my understanding that that was never approved.
And who's in there now? Who's staying there?
Guests, I guess.
Guests, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
How long
Okay,
do they
I will, Chris, I will.
All right. And also, to my knowledge, it was never classified as a resort. A inn is, as Mr. Tressler pointed out before, a combination of eating, lodging, and recreational enterprises. Well, a golf course, wouldn't that be considered a recreational enterprise?
Me too. I don't know what we're doing here. Chris, I'll let you, why don't you go ahead, what's on your mind at the moment? And then I'll.
The question of, is it an inn, is it a conference center? Doesn't the fact that they accept medical insurance as payment automatically make it a medical facility? Like, they take Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Holiday Inn doesn't do that.
I understand.
So I don't understand what the question is, what are they operating as? It's a medical facility because they take health insurance as payment.
All right.
So can it be that easy?
We're obviously playing a game here, so let's have some fun.
Okay, I still have a few more points to make. A certificate of occupancy was issued in 2019 for a commercial alterations for a conference center. And that was issued by, Mr. Tino Noki. So at that time, somebody thought it was conference center. Then if the ordinance was enacted after the facility has been used for an inn for so many years, and if you're classifying it as a resort, with the change in the zoning, wouldn't that make it a non-conforming use? And as such, the zoning officer shall, upon adoption of this chapter, that's 27-602, registration of non-conforming uses. The zoning officer shall, upon adoption of this chapter, identify and register all non-conforming uses and structures. Did this happen for this facility? You know?
It's not up to us, it's up to you.
It
I don't know
says,
what you're doing here.
excuse me, it says the zoning officer shall.
We're the planning commission, we're not the zoning officer.
Well, my point is that I can find nothing that supports this as anything other than an inn.
We can't find anything that supports that you're using it as any, so where are we? We're looking at each other. But I don't mean to be flip, but I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish here.
We're trying to get an answer. It's been 10 weeks since we contacted the zoning officer. How long are we expected to wait?
We had a transition in employers, or employees, so that's gotta give a little bit of a time to catch up.
I
He's
understand that.
catching up now, according to.
So can you help me out here?
Yes.
If this is a conference center, pure, not a conference center, an inn, just an inn, not a conference center, would this accessory structure be allowed?
I believe so, I forget, but I believe it definitely would be allowed as with a resort. I believe it would, it may be allowed with an inn, it wouldn't be allowed with, a medical treatment facility.
It would not.
No. I forget what the uses were, I had that, I got my file here, I can go back to my first review letter, I think I laid it out in there.
So they obviously are here to have the plan approved for this accessory structure. And the stumbling block for us is, what is the use of the existing facility to find out if it is allowed to be used as an accessory structure? Or,
Yeah, this. But this one is a template, but this is just a completeness. So that's your letter.
so that's the stumble here right now, is what is the facility? And, you know, you guys are calling it an inn, but you know, that's just a wink and a nod, because we all know that it's moving as a drug facility, and that's a given. We all know that. So it's, how do we get beyond this? And what is it really classified as?
No, I have to disagree on the drug facility.
I'm sorry,
I have to disagree on the drug.
You
facility.
accept?
I'm not saying that,
For the lodging, I don't believe we do. We are partnered with another company that does treatment. But at that property, there is no medical anything going on.
How do you bus them over to Route 447?
Yes, we drive them to another location.
Do you do that? Do most inns provide that service?
I don't know how most inns
I mean,
operate.
if we're playing games here, like I said.
Well, we're really not playing games. We're trying to grow a business.
I'm not making a determination, but I'm giving you the benefit of my history. And I'm saying that a determination is required.
Right, I
So
understand
who makes
that.
that determination?
Zoning. I don't have the power to make that.
No, I understand, no.
So can we accomplish anything tonight? Not really.
I mean, do you have any technical questions with the technical review? Do you have any questions on that that need
No.
to be addressed?
I believe we've addressed them with Melissa.
Yeah, I think this is the pivotal point, you know, if they've got documentation that they're operating as an inn. You may wanna see it, if you wanna accept. What we've heard tonight, that they're operating as an inn, then we can proceed.
So, but if the plan develops substantially enough that you have done your review of the drawings.
Yes.
So we could, I'm not doing it, but we could make a motion that say, if it is determined that is an in, and all the condition of your letter have been met, then we recommend approval.
You could,
That would be a fair.
that would be.
The other, the other motion would be, if it is determined that is a non-conforming use, or not, that's not good words. If it's a use that would not allow that accessory structure, then we recommend it be denied.
Correct, those are the two options.
So I could combine those into one motion.
I don't know, we can make it do that.
But that could be combined in one motion.
Okay, I believe, yes.
I'm sorry, Dave.
But I could combine those two into one motion. Then it would be moved on for the zoning officer to make determination and for the supervisor to then act on. Because we really can't do anything here other than those two options.
Those two options, that is correct. And the rest are engineering, which I do know there's a lot of progress has been made on addressing those
So
comments.
all of the lighting, stormwater, parking, all that stuff's been resolved.
Yes.
All right, so let's, I'm out in position to make that motion. I mean, we're gonna sit here and debate whether it's an in or a drug package facility all night. Not getting it.
It won't be us.
I'll drop the motion, if you get a second, then you can
Yeah,
vote.
all right, I'll make that motion. I'll try to say it again. Make a motion, if this is determined by the zoning officer that it is an in, then I make them, and that all the comments of the engineer's
Or
letter.
they're willing to address all the comments. I mean, I think that you've addressed most of them, haven't you, Jim?
Correct.
There may be a couple, we've got to do a final review based on what you've done, but.
Yes.
Second condition of.
Yeah, condition upon satisfying the engineer's comments of the May 2nd letter.
Yes.
If it is determined by the zoning officer that it is a use that does not allow this structure as an accessory, that the request be denied.
I second the motion. All right, any discussion? Go ahead, Daniel.
That one question. So just to clarify, you're saying that a third party books the rooms for the drug rehab program?
The rooms have nothing to do with the rehabilitation center.
Okay,
There's no medical treatment whatsoever being done on that property.
but it sounded like you were saying that there was a third party that dealt with,
There is another company that deals with rehabilitation, yes, but
okay,
nothing happens on that property.
and that other company pays you,
Honestly, I don't know how the marketing or the financials work. I run the facility. I make sure the toilet's flush. That's about the best I can say.
yeah,
I'm not into the bean counting or anything else.
and they book the whole facility?
I have no idea.
We need to get an answer on that.
No, let the zoning officer go.
Okay,
Well, I do have a question on the motion. You said
You
that.
don't have a second yet.
Yeah, we got
Yeah,
it.
we did.
You do.
Yeah, we had,
Sorry.
Daniel seconded it.
And that is, you said that if it's not determined, that it would be denied.
No, so it's going to be used that would not allow this accessory structure,
Okay,
whatever that would be, then it would be denied. Then we recommend not approving it.
okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yep, go ahead.
Are the people staying there free to leave?
Anytime they want to. It's an inn. You could leave a hotel whenever you want to. I do have if I may, do we have a time that we're gonna be able to get an answer? Or I
We can't
mean,
tell you that. I
our,
have to talk to the zoning officer.
well, our expiration date's January or June 12th, I believe.
That's up to you. If you wanna extend it, whatever, like that's done.
It
That's
was.
nothing we can do.
Once.
All right, we have the motion and it is seconded. All in favor? Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Two no's. All right, it moves on with that, with the motion having carried the motion of Mr. Strunk. All right,
Right, thank you. I'm sorry that I was confrontational, but it's been very frustrating trying to get an answer from the zoning officer.
Well, we understand that, but like I said, there's a transition going on, and we
Right.
don't want him to make a decision that's based on facts.
Well, he told me that he never even saw any plans or anything until 2 days ago.
well, whatever it is, take it up, you can take it up here with the township.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Take it up.
Dave, what are we doing with this thing? We've moved it on, I guess.
We moved on to supervisors and moved to the officer. All right, next. Next, would be new business.
Self-storage.
B, self-storage regulation, what is this? Julia, you want to please?
Yeah.
Sorry, self-storage.
Yeah, self-storage.
Thank you. So this is in front of you this evening because, we don't actually have any real regulations of self-storage facilities. We do have a number of them in the township. And from what I have found with my research, they've come in through variances, through conditional uses, and, one court case. So when Matt got here, he reviewed everything, and this is one of his suggestions in tandem with John's suggestion shortly after the trip. One of the movement self-storage that we created. Trapasso, thank you. That we create these regulations so we don't get 302 again, so we have guidance for these people. What is in front of you tonight is an amalgam of.
So the only complaint in this letter,
Yeah.
the planning commission at the county, is there some sample regulation?
So the planning commission letter, I got today, so I wasn't able to put it into your binders, that was separate.
So there's something in the binder?
Yeah.
In the back, you should have self-storage,
In the
and
back.
you should have transient something around it. At least in my.
Ordinance number 2XX.
Yes. So this ordinance has,
I'll find it.
been reviewed by the zoning officer. It's been gone over by the board of supervisors, and they'd like you to take a look at it and have your comments. Like I had mentioned, the Monroe County Planning Commission, got their comments back to us earlier today. They had one comment that suggested the township should consider specifically prohibiting barbed/razor wire on required fencing, as well as privacy slats in the interest of aesthetics and safety. I see no problem adding that if you are amenable to do so, but we wanted your comments to see if there were any other thoughts you had regarding this draft.
Also to Mr. Chair, the ordinance says that
Okay.
in the ED zone, this would be a conditional use. And in the industrial zone, it's permitted, but it's not allowed in any of the other districts.
All right, so it will be allowed somewhere, so we're beyond that problem. Okay. All right, and. Okay.
I don't know where it is.
Yeah, I can, these pages are not numbered.
Yeah. It was in front of the.
Yeah, right in front of this
It's right
newspaper.
at the
In front of
carrier.
this newspaper. 4 pages in front of this newspaper.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was four in front of it. Okay.
Well, that's what I have.
It's.
Oh, okay.
It's in front of that. One more. One more.
There you are.
There you are. Oh, God.
Right.
So what are you looking for from us tonight, just to introduce it?
To introduce it, and if you have time to review it, we'd love your thoughts and comments and suggestions. If there is
Who
no
wrote this?
opposite, that was me. I looked at 7 different, other self-storage facilities, that are near us from Allen Township, Chestnut Hill, Cuba, East Lampeter, Middle Smithfield, Palmer, Pocono, and Polk. Kind of combined them. took the best parts that I could find with this. I believe I already said this, but the zoning officers reviewed this. The board of supervisors has also taken a look at it and gave it to you guys for comment.
Will we have an opportunity to dive in deeper into this, or do you want us to respond today? Because I haven't read it, I apologize.
If that is totally okay, if you would like to take more time, because of the, basically substantial comment that, Monroe County Planning Commission provided today, I will need to resend this to them with that change. So if you're gonna want to wait until.
Yeah, let me see what did they ask about?
The only one is number 4, everything else is generally consistent, number 4.
Oh, that's the razor wire.
Yeah, the razor wire.
Okay.
Do they want to prohibit privacy slats also?
Yes, they
Okay.
said, yeah, prohibit barbed and razor wire and privacy slats.
Why do they want to prohibit privacy?
Yeah.
I mean, we've done that before, it's actually pretty nice. Any thoughts on that?
Maybe they think, it says in the interest of aesthetics and safety.
If the facility that's over there on, Milford Road by Birch Acres, I remember when that one came through and we wanted the privacy fence, because, you know, just to kind of mask what was behind it.
Yeah.
I can change the,
But just ask them what their logic is for that.
I would tell you to call Eric, but he's on vacation for the rest of the month. Perhaps Christine Markart would be able to answer. I can
Okay.
find out.
Is there anything here that restricts a contractor from making it his, you know,
Yes.
Number 1 on B. They
Yeah.
can't use it as a work site, as a
Correct.
business location.
Also under prohibited uses, it specifically references the operation of power tools, spray painting equipment, table saws, compressors, welders, and other things like that to prevent this from being turned into a micro workspace.
And you can't live there.
That is also correct. It does not allow facilities and it does not allow human habitation. I would suggest finding a better space than a storage space.
You know, they did the limits over by Great Acre.
But
A couple years ago? They turned it into a photographic film studio, and they called it through that.
Didn't have a business license?
I'd like an opportunity to review it.
I don't know, they were just in and out, they were in and out.
So you're gonna come back to the planning commission or the Monroe County Planning.
Yeah, because they suggest prohibiting barbed and razor wire, when I make that change to this ordinance, I'm required to resubmit it to them and give them another 30 days to review.
Okay.
So we can just wait until the, 12th
But
meeting.
they're also saying to have the privacy slats too, so
Yes.
we don't agree with that.
These are only recommendations, but you are welcome to.
I would
accept
like to understand them, is it okay if I
Yeah.
call?
Of course.
Okay. I'd like to understand their logic.
I mean, I understand the barbed and razor wire and that.
Why?
Huh?
It's a bit much.
Yeah, I don't know, but then it looks like a prison yard, but it's just, you know, that's so down, that's the thing, that's the deal with me. Okay,
In the intent is for this to only be in the M1 zone?
no, it's-
It would be principal permitted use in the M1 zone and a conditional use in the economic
Yeah.
development district.
Okay,
Because all of the current operating storage facilities in the township are in the economic development district.
okay.
Is Trapasso's being built?
no.
It's been approved, but we're looking for paperwork from him and he doesn't, Don, please correct me if I'm
We went
wrong
through the
here.
approval process.
Picasso does not have signed plans for,
Is that true?
I mean, he's got approved plans, but he has not,
That was years ago,
yeah, he hasn't recorded
that
it.
was several years ago we did it.
Yeah, I don't know what the delay is. He would have to come back, I think he has to record them within a year.
No.
Okay. All right, next thing. Transient business regulation. Which one is that?
so that will be the last thing in your packet.
Could you just define what transient businesses, so we're all on the same page, or is this? Oh, there it is, engaging in peddling and soliciting, taking. Bring food.
And there's not the current version and the suggested version, you know, back to back.
So,
Side to side.
yeah, you'll notice that this version is presented differently than the last version that you were handed. And that's because the township currently has a version of this that is active on our website. So on the left side of this paper, you'll see at the top where it says current version. On the right side of the paper, you'll see new version. And any changes that are made between these two things, you'll see in bold.
Yeah.
To help better identify what's being proposed or changed.
Do it.
In order to keep all of the items, in line, you'll see either brackets saying placeholder or removed in some spaces, just to keep everything as, apples to apples as we can. These proposed changes were suggested by the Board of Supervisors, and are now before you for consideration. This does not have an adoption timeline, and this one has not been submitted to the Monmouth County Planning Commission at this time.
Are you going to be doing it?
I will not be submitting it until I hear after from you guys. The board was thinking you were probably going to want to make changes to this one. So I did not wait for the MCPC's time.
Yeah, I'd like to look at this.
Yeah, this one's gonna need to move it, because these are your flower stands, these are your pop-up stores, yeah.
On Tuesday, went to 209. They took off all the political signs off the road.
They did?
Yeah. Except the big ones.
I'm sorry to seem feeble, but is there any way we can make this,
I can absolutely print an 11 by 17 copy for you,
if you
sir.
would,
Yes.
that would be great.
My one question is, as we start to dive into this, how long can a transient business stay? That's always gonna be the big one.
I
Do we know?
believe the permits in here are good for a year. And that's just the permit that needs to be.
No, just a permit, but I mean, how long can it operate at a time before having to break down and go away? The 1 year?
1 year.
I thought it was the 1 year. I could be wrong.
No, you can have your permit for 1 year, but you can't stay open for a whole 1 year.
Yeah, I thought it was like a 30-day.
It's usually like 2 weeks or 3
Shall
weeks
be
or
for a
one.
period of no more than 30 consecutive days.
There you go, yep.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's in the old one, isn't it?
That's
Yeah,
in
that is in
last
the
time.
That's
old
the
one,
current
and
one.
that is
And-
Current one says that the permit can be renewed annually and the township shall not restrict hours of operation. That's the proposal.
The hours of operation restriction was shifted up to item E on the same page to put the hours of operation restriction with the person who owns the business. That is food for thought for sure that there's, it just says renewed annually. It's item L on page 3 for that.
What are we doing? I'm having to get with their own garbage.
It does, and that's because if you have a space on there, you're kind of assuming that that is going to occur. Are you talking about?
F was just removed.
Yeah, so the way that this is worded, we interpreted it as, like, let's say you had a food truck and you brought it to company ABC and they have trash removal services on their property. The way that that was interpreted was that the food truck would have to bring a second dumpster onto the property. And so that seems a little silly if they're getting permission from the owner to exist on the property. Presumably they'd be allowed to use the facilities to dispose of waste on site.
Can we modify it to just say you have to clean up after yourself, essentially?
Of course, yeah.
I'm not assuming people take their own garbage.
It makes perfect sense to do.
Are they paying a tax?
Completely removing it.
Any businesses that operate are required to be registered with the state of Pennsylvania. Those sorts of tax stuff, just like the hotel
But
tax.
does the township ask for a tax for their stay at a particular spot?
That would I would consider that more of the permit fee for the annual. I mean, obviously, anyone who has a transient business, the flower stand that sets up, I'm sure that there's an exchange of money between the flower shop owner and the owner of the property. But as far as the township imposing tax
But
upon.
how prevalent are these, because there would be, you're thinking maybe it's in spots like, where the St. Luke's facilities is at?
It could be at St. Luke's, if, I've always seen the flower shop pop up over by the Stroud Mall. This would also apply to
Right.
things like food trucks as well. There's a meat sale.
Yeah, they used to
that
have one by
happens.
Weiss when they were over on Marshall Street.
Oh, yeah, the Marshall Creek Fire Company was the flower sale.
So it's not something that, is an ongoing problem, it's just to address as we grow, to address this problem.
I would say it's a little bit of both, because we want to make sure that our ordinances conform, so if somebody with a food truck does say, hey, I wanna have this. We've got the ordinances that allow them to do so. The big kickoff for having the township review this, was a requirement, I think a couple pages earlier, that stated that the applicant needed to provide a highway occupancy permit for the property owner's property. And after a little bit of a go around with PennDOT, we learned that they don't have a database of those, anywhere from basically 2006 backwards, which we don't feel is very fair. Basically say, oh, sorry, you can't do this here simply because your property is older than 2006 and PennDOT has no proof of the HOP. They digitized in 2006 and they said they have everything from 2006 forward, but I think they're still working on running backwards.
So does this permit allow them to be in a particular spot where they can claim, they can go every year?
That would be between them and the property owner where they're allowed to exist. This would allow them to operate in the township under the specifications.
So they have to have be a part of some property owners, or can they be on the side of the road?
PennDOT won't allow anybody to just like pull over on the side of 209 and pop up. They would need to be in a parking lot or somewhere safe that they could operate. And they would need to get permission from the owner of that property. Like, for example, if somebody wanted to do a food truck in Dollar General and just pulled up and popped open the doors, I don't think Dollar General would be too happy about that. But this allows us to kind of create that permitting system. So when somebody does pop up, we go, yes, we know who they are, here's their contact information. And they're hopefully abiding by the rules of the township.
Where I struggle with this is, I see the spring flower tent go up and, they're in there selling all the flowers and they're now competing with, Regina Farms, Richards Tree Farm, whatever. And they don't have the overhead that those guys do. And they come in there and they just take all the business and it makes those businesses that are in the community all the time struggle. And I'm not saying I don't wanna make it easy for them, but, we talk about the highway occupancy permit. What if they're on a facility that doesn't get a lot of traffic and all of a sudden they go into that parking lot and they now create a lot of traffic? Yet we're allowing them to do it because they're a transient business, but then it becomes a problem. They don't have a land development plan, they don't have available through any of those.
Any of the things that we did, just for a minor subdivision,
They come in there and they can take a lot of profits in a 2-month period and they go away. And there's a part of me that thinks, is that really fair to the businesses that do it the right way and are here in the, 24/7, 365 supporting the community? So.
It does have 144 square foot limit.
Okay, I haven't read it, I'm just saying
Yeah,
that's
so it's
my
can't be
immediate
lower than
reaction.
12 by 12.
Should there be a restriction as to where they can be?
Yeah, but
That's
the
a
other,
question, right?
the other side of the argument is this. And this is just for the ED zone, I think, isn't it? Julia? ED zone or ED M1?
Well, it makes sense, they're not gonna put it in an M1.
No, right, but, I mean, it's allowed, but it would be just
it's essentially for two corridors, Milford Road and 209.
Right.
And one of the problems we have, when you talk about merchants, is this, that any small merchant that wants to operate around here, has a terrible time finding anywhere to go. Because most of the small merchants you would assume would be competing with, or I would say, mobile or transit business would be competing with, are kind of restricted to, let's say, a rent of anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 a month. The only place we really have where they can go at this point is the Marshall Street Shopping Center, where there's a strip of
Right.
pizza place and this and that.
Right.
There's nowhere else.
Or J Park, maybe there's something there.
Well, except there's no business. Comes in other words, it's not a road that everybody can see the property. But so though that's what we've got, we don't have anything else. And this is a way of, let's say, bringing in other merchants who could compete and sell things here. And pretty much the same basis. And if there was any place for them to go, we could make the argument, okay, you're competing with X, Y, and Z stores here. There's nothing. And whatever will be built new, will have rents so high that those kinds of merchants, whether they're, stationary or whether they have to be transit, couldn't go there because it's too high rent. So this is the way.
Yeah, but most of these transient businesses are not necessarily locals that are gonna be contributing to the tax base and be part of the community.
Right.
They're just gonna set up a tent and move on.
To answer your question, on page 2, transient licenses shall only be permitted in M1, RE, and the economic development.
Obviously, when you take time to live, I'm just expressing my
Yeah, no,
first gut reaction
the
to it.
practical side of it is, where do you go, Once that I've started business in Smithfield Township, it's a small business. It's just a good place where you can go.
How much does the permit cost?
That would be relegated by resolution of the township to be enacted in the Smithfield.
That's the only thing we would be getting notices.
Yeah, Brett.
In the township tax transient businesses,
Yeah.
I don't know.
they do.
Well, I thought you guys.
It would be sales tax.
We just say property tax, that's it.
I'm sorry,
It'd just be sales tax, which is a
sales
state.
tax, but the township can't make any money to help the residents who have businesses or whatever.
At the end of the sales tax.
Sales tax is state tax anyway.
And then property tax, which is divided.
That's just whatever the owner of this spot on, in a short period of time. Yeah, Chris?
So I'm hearing no, sorry,
No.
thank you.
I'd like to rebut Robert's comment. Speculating about the future cost of rent anywhere, we don't know. And if there's nowhere for these new businesses to go, then that indicates to me that we're full up. And now you're trying to shove 10 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag.
I resent the idea that we're full up. We're not full up, we just don't have any place. In other words, what do you
Well, what do
say?
you call it?
Wait a minute, are you saying that we shouldn't have businesses here, that people shouldn't start them because we're full up? No,
Well, if there's no physical place for them to do it.
that's why we're talking about allowing transient businesses there. There is no place for them to go.
So where are the transient businesses gonna go?
Well, the transient business has to make a deal with a landlord who will let them be on somebody's property. Clear and simple. I don't know what you're objecting to here, but the idea that we're full up is something that's, I think, is absurd.
You're allowed to think that, but. Our roads are already.
Everything has a
overburdened.
capacity, a gas tank, anything. But
Sure.
a township, which is trying to encourage business, doesn't have a capacity unless there's so many businesses here that no one wants to come in. That's
So,
the capacity.
So let's
Hold on,
say
hold on,
that
I'm sorry.
transient
Who made the
businesses-
capacity comment? I didn't.
I did, Tim.
Oh, hi, Tim, sorry,
Hi, Julian, sorry.
carry on, thank you.
so. If I'm a business owner, if I'm a brick and mortar business owner, and I see this ordinance, transient business, I'm shutting up and I'm getting myself a van. And now we're gonna have vacant lots because everybody's gonna be a transient business.
Go ahead.
I would do that, that's a smart business
I
move.
deal with, small businesses, like especially restaurants, all the time. There's no place for them to go. I try to find them places here. There's no place to go. There's nothing available. You know, I'll give you one example, where the, adventure, kayaking places and ski places, rental on, 209.
Adventure sports.
They have one business there that they
Yeah, it
own,
happens.
that they've tried to rent out or have rented out over the years. There are people waiting in line who would love to go in there because there is no place like that. That's the only place on all of 209 where you can say, okay, once in a while, somebody new can move in every 3 or 4 years. But that's about it.
Why is
Now,
it?
show me
why
another
is it
place
being
where
used?
anybody can open a business on 209 that wants to pay a rent that they can afford, $1,500, $2,000 a month. Where do you go?
Somewhere else.
You don't go to Gateway, which even if it was open, would be charging a lot more than that. You can't go to the Days Inn anymore. That's been torn down. Where do you go?
But Bob, there have been several restaurants in our township that have sat vacant for years and nobody ever filled it. For example, right over here at Jay Park, there was a pizza place, I forget the name of it, right on the corner.
Alfredo's.
If you go over to the other Milford Road, there was a Happy Days restaurant that
Yeah.
closed down, nobody ever moved in, but now it's
Yeah.
apartments.
South
You
Department.
go to the Penn Sword where that long extent is, that was a restaurant that sat vacant for years, nobody ever moved in it. So I.
The restaurants on 209 down further, there's a few on
Yeah.
209
You're
there.
talking about
Then indeed,
Milford Road.
On Milford Road, where that extended stay motel is, to the right, it's also the motel or extended stay. That used to be a restaurant called the Penn and Sword. That sat vacant for 20 years.
easily.
So there were lots of opportunities for restaurants to move in.
But they may have been bad restaurants.
Well, I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I don't know that I can buy that argument.
Look at the Eurobagel, that seems to do very well. It stays there. It's been there
Yep.
for 5 or 7
Well, I
years.
don't know, I think that the restaurant has to be good in order for it to succeed. And that place you're talking about next to Adventure Sports, whatever it was called,
Mad Apples.
yeah, I mean.
There's a lot of things.
That was open one day a week and then it was closed and they never made an honest attempt at it.
Well, now there's somebody new moving in there. Maybe it'll be better.
Who
That's
knows?
all we've got.
I think I think my brain is not really processing the word transient and pop-up. And my idea of that is, in transient, is it's something that shows up for a little while for maybe a special event and then goes away, and the same with pop-up, that it doesn't stay there. But this sounds more like it's a small, like a 12 by 12 footprint that is gonna be there year after year. Is that
No, it's still
Right.
temporary.
okay?
Quite honestly, because we don't know yet. If it's really successful, maybe it is, or maybe whatever property they're on, they can make a deal with a landlord to build something there. I don't know.
But there's no, if the fee is an annual fee and there's no other time limit in the
I think
ordinance,
so.
then they could stay for a whole year, I guess.
Feasibly, we could definitely put a time limit on there that you can't stay in the same place for more than a week or a day.
Well, that's what I was talking about, like.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
Like,
I can.
like a permit can be for a year, but no
Yeah.
more than 30 days at a time in
Yeah,
any one place.
The concept for the permit would be that like, if you had a food truck and wanted to, work in the parking lot of company ABC Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then you could shift over to Marshall Street the next 2 days, you wouldn't have to come back to the township every time because we have your approval that you can operate within the township.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
But, I mean, we can absolutely talk, I don't know if you guys wanna make that decision now or read over it and come back next
I'd
month.
like to read that.
No,
They-
I'd like to read it.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I meant specifically
No, I know.
for like a 30-day.
We're all talking about when you read this, so
Yeah.
it's not,
Yeah, sure.
just expressing feelings.
And speaking of which, you promised you'd send me via email, you'd email me pages I could read.
Well, so if I email them to you, you'll be able to blow them up, but I will, as soon as the meeting is over, I will go print you an 11 by 17 copy, so if you don't mind hanging out for a few minutes, I'll get that to you before you get out the door.
Yeah, that'd be helpful if you don't mind doing that.
I don't know, I've got it, notes right here, print 11 by 17 copy.
All townships have the things or some dudes in them.
Ordinances are a beautiful mixed bag, I can pull a search if you want to see
You
other.
mentioned a couple that you.
Um,
Were that the previous one? Was that the previous?
yeah, I definitely, I referred to those, I don't know if I put any.
Which could be easily.
So we do, we
Okay.
have a current ordinance.
Yes, that's on the left side of the page for you.
You will.
I did, but I can pull. it.
Okay, so we'll look at it and put it on for next week. All right,
Sounds good.
now, we're almost there here. Two things that I very quickly want to bring up. First, I want to thank the township for knocking down the strike signs on the utility poles. All right, that's terrific. They're back.
What's
This morning. They're the ones that are snapping at each other. Two showed up down by your house. Did you see them?
Wow,
You probably didn't even notice them, right in the corner of 447.
all right.
Yeah, look. They are actually, dredge, trash and junk removal. It's on each side of four.
Oh, I did see that.
Oh, snipe sign.
Side side,
Yeah.
alright?
Would you mind telling me, we've been.
You know what, I know you have. Where Franklin Hill Road goes across 447 and diagonal,
Yeah.
one on each one,
Okay.
alright? Next.
Big line, it's been.
How about
Yeah, big line, and the next
State line
thing,
paving?
huh?
State
Big line.
line.
Well, that would be this one,
They've been out.
alright? Who is this guy?
Years.
I think he
I
lives.
want a pole that's up going up, to, on 402, it's just.
Yeah, okay, so who, but I'm actually very serious. Do we know who this guy is?
Well, we put that one on the.
This is not where they knocked, this is where they were
The
kind of.
concrete box.
So-
Yeah, the concrete, but yeah.
We were actually out pulling signs
Yeah.
the day after that guy showed up.
Yeah.
We measured it, it's not in the PennDOT right of way. So it's not on any public infrastructure, so we do not have the power to remove that one by ripping it down.
Okay, but
Matt,
who is he? Who's the owner? Do we know?
Scott, I believe he. He's kind of transient, lives at, what campgrounds on, Mount Nebo Road?
Oh,
Box.
he used to be the old Fox
Yeah.
something, yeah.
Yeah,
He's up there?
I believe he stays there seasonally, he's from New Jersey, and.
Yeah, he has signs in New Jersey too.
Mhm.
My only suggestion would be is, because we keep taking this guy's sign off the poles or whatnot. I would just make a recommendation to the town supervisors that that little solicitor send a cease and desist, otherwise we're gonna, because this guy keeps doing it.
But is the sign ordinance been enacted?
Well,
the
they're not
sign-
lawful under the old ones.
The
Okay.
sign ordinance is not enacted yet, but after we had that
Yeah.
huge talk, the township did pass that resolution that enables any township staff as well as any designated third parties, like our zoning officer, to go out and just rip them down.
Because they're not allowed.
Right, when we
Okay.
hold them for 10 days, 10 calendar days, not 10 business days before we dispose of them.
But I do want to publicly say thank you. It's a lot better when you're going up and down the side road, you know, the various ones. That those, you know, the ones that these guys have nailed to the poles are
Does the
gone.
township have any authority to impose fines if you tell them to remove them and they don't do it? The easy thing to do is call them and say, remove your signs or we're gonna start charging you $500 a day per sign or some,
That's probably.
whatever that's allowed.
That might get, maybe, because most of it is public infrastructure, it's not, like telephone poles are not owned by the township, I don't know if we would be able to do that. Ron, do
Well,
you
they're
have any
still not
idea?
allowed, it's still a township.
Certainly you would have to do an ordinance.
Is,
But I thought the ordinance now have that.
The resolution, there's no ordinance.
no, that's not.
I think
The
the new
resolution
ordinance,
for signs.
the new signage ordinance, I do believe has much more language in it about off premises signs.
Yes, and some snipes.
And sign.
If you can ever pass it.
That's why that's such a good.
I don't know, that's why I asked, I don't know where it's at, I mean, we had come through the planning commission and we debated it for quite quite a while, I don't know where it landed. Maybe you could ask one of the supervisors, they might know.
As far as I'm concerned, the only thing that was open on it that I can remember was billboards, and you and I pretty much settled.
Yeah, I thought that was resolved.
Yeah,
This
Nothing
is,
happens.
yeah, this got, just slowed down
Well, you're on it.
because of the data center and all of the other stuff that Alex has been working on. I spoke with him briefly today and
Okay.
we're hoping to get it back on soon.
Good.
We will have to, next time we do this, make sure that whenever we have a
Next
joint
meeting?
session regarding this, we set a
Joint
firm
session.
date, so nothing gets slowed down.
Yeah, let's do that, we put a lot of work into
Yeah,
that.
cause that was a lot of, there was a lot of multiple meetings and you
Yeah,
guys.
Alex, Mike and I probably had 12 sessions on that.
Okay, next meeting?
I can see if the Board of Supervisors is available for the June, I think it's the June 12th meeting, I think that's the date.
That's our meeting?
Yes, June 12th. I will, I'll see if they're available to do joint session at that time.
I make a motion, then we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're done.
Public comment, please.
I think I'll comment.
What?
public comment.
All right, Brett, what do you have?
What do
Give
we
me.
got? Okay, please always have public comment.
I do public
Public
comment.
needs to participate in this forum. And we need to bring them in. That's part of my.
Oh, that's your public comment.
No, it's not.
Oh.
It is generally, we need more community buy-in to this organization. I'm working towards helping that happen. I have a question about data centers. Is this body working prior to any commercial proposal? Is this body prepared to entertain a data center bill?
Bill meaning ordinance or?
If somebody wants to build a data center, what have you done to accommodate?
I know.
um,
That Brett actually is not up to us, those directives to us, those are policy directives that come from the supervisory board.
Is anyone here working on that?
No,
Yes,
I'm
yeah,
not, but
the
they are.
township is, out, that is one of the ordinances that Alex is working on. If you go to the township website, under open township projects, you can see where he is in the development process.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Just wonder if you guys are
So
helping out.
wouldn't that just be already covered under different uses that are allowed in the ED district or the M1 district, is that?
It's pretty complicated.
Data center is?
Yeah. We have to be prepared. I understand the township has to be prepared in advance to deal with a data center. It's a unique building site. And unless the township is organized, they can make.
It's a catastrophe waiting to happen.
Exactly, so I'm
Well,
just asking.
we did have some discussions years back on Route 447 where the LVHN facility is. That was gonna be a data center. It was back when they were talking about Wall Street West.
Right.
After the,
That, this is long.
9/11 happened. They were talking about building a facility there. And that actually went through the planning commission for a bit. And then it stalled. So what are the concerns with the data center that we need to be aware of?
Well,
Other than power?
power, yeah, and of course, water. But also the nature of data centers, the size of them. If the township, I understand, I read an article on, I think, that there's a local county adjacent to us who the data center want to come in, and because that county was not prepared, they were able to require or request the data center be placed in all zones. And it was because the township wasn't prepared for it.
Understood, just like the problem you have with the drug and rehab facilities, that type of situation.
Yeah,
So my question is, I don't know if Ron, you can answer it. How are data centers addressing our zoning now?
I believe there is an ordinance for data centers.
An ordinance or an allowable use in an ED district?
An ordinance that changed and made the use permissible. I'm not sure exactly where, because I remember there was an ordinance that had to change data centers, the use and the description, et cetera,
Okay.
probably 10 years or so ago.
According to a
How
colleague,
current that is, I don't know, but
So Julia, for our next meeting, could you maybe direct us as to where that ordinance is or zoning is or whatever, just so we can look at it, see if
I
it needs to be
can
addressed?
actually tell you that right now, that is also on Alex's plate for ordinance development, but it was tabled in favor so he could focus on signs.
Yeah,
So.
In our ordinances, I believe they're only allowed in the ED and the M1 zone. And even then, well, we're in the process, and Alex has been handling this, to write down more detailed of an ordinance on what exactly is allowed, what we will accept, you know, all that kind of stuff.
distance
Because
from
it's been very
residential, distance from residences, for example, with these things, according to one of our colleagues here, noisy as hell.
Where did what?
These are noisy things, these data centers.
Not necessarily.
Big air exchangers.
Horrible in
We want to,
They never
Big
stop.
air
They're
exchangers.
horrible.
we want to
Horrible.
consider all of those things, and the other thing that we have to consider is this, that, what is required for these data centers is changing continually. For instance, a year ago, it was enormous amounts of water, right? Now, the new data centers don't use water anymore, they use some sort of chemical that can be recycled, so they don't need as much water. I can't say how much, but it's a lot less.
Yeah,
Electricity, we don't know, it's huge amounts, except that, the Chinese version of AI, which is, what is it, Deep Sync?
Yeah.
Doesn't use anywhere near as much power as the old version.
right. We had this
So,
conversation.
and the noise is another factor that keeps changing. We have to have an ordinance that works for all of these things, but you have to understand that everything in this process of building these things and what they're for is changing continually.
Yes.
Well, we have a noise ordinance that they would have to follow.
Yes, we do.
Alright, I've designed data centers, so I know what goes into them, and that's why I don't really see what the big concern is. Yeah, there's noise, because they have equipment on the roof that's cooling the computers. But that could be the same situation in any commercial facility. It's just a matter of how they attenuate that noise. It's easily addressed as a condition.
Additionally, the data centers have a lifespan of 25 years. Facility has a lifespan. What happens to the township after 25 years?
That's the big question I'm concerned about, because the same thing has happened with these logistical centers or warehouses.
Right,
There was a huge push to build all of them.
yeah.
Now, some of them are half empty and some of them are more than half.
More than half empty,
What
some
happens
of them.
is that you've got
Yeah, we have that same
500,000, a
situation
million.
with residences that are abandoned for
Well,
20, 30 years.
wait, these are 1 million square foot.
I understand,
So it's not,
Still
the
an
same.
abandoned-
It's not the same as a
I
residence.
understand.
There's a
It's a
problem is,
unique use that will probably not be duplicated once the time is over. So you've got at the gateway, the guy came down here and proposed a data center at the gateway. In 25 years, we have, welcome to Smithfield Township. There's a huge dead building there.
and the problem is the demolition costs are so high, you can't get
Well,
rid of.
then maybe we do look at the ordinance and say we put something in there that allows funding for removal.
Yes,
That's broken.
So this is underscoring for me personally, our desperate need for a new comprehensive plan, which was last done in 2001. And we're just making all of these ordinances,
that would
and
not
in the
address what we- that
ordinances,
won't
they
address
all
what we're
talk
talking about
about,
now.
we'll consider it. If it we'll compare it, or we'll take into consideration how it conforms to our comprehensive plan, which is 23 freaking years old.
Really,
I bet there's grants available for that.
Well, Monroe County's got a grant for their.
Yes, they do. Actually, you know, I think I even brought it with me.
Are they finished?
I think so.
I didn't know there was.
are you looking at the grant?
Their DCED has one. No, I didn't bring it with me. I'll bring it up to the supervisor meeting. So, you know, I mean, we can make all sorts of ordinances, but what are they working towards? If we're worried in 25 years what these buildings are gonna be, let's make them drug rehabs. Let's, you know, make them senior housing. Let's do something, but we can't keep passing all of these ordinances without having some sort of cohesive framework to hang them all off of.
And you
We're
think, you
piecemealing
think a
it.
master plan will do that?
That's
Is that what you think?
That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, well, I've been through parts of master plans. To me, they're worthless. Why are they worthless? Because you can build any kind, you can put any kind of beautiful plan out there. What's gonna happen is, when people have money and they wanna develop something, that's what's gonna get built. Not what's on the master
It's-
plan.
it's-
And what you pay is $80,000 to have a lovely, picture book, it's like a little golden book of, oh, look, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Middle Smithfield did that a couple years ago, read theirs, see if anything there makes any sense.
Well,
I
there's
guess
a
Monroe County
thing
is
of,
diluted then too.
It does make sense. Then you have to ask yourself whether the plan that we executed in '01. And I believe we looked at it again in '05, but the point is it still valid?
Right.
And I happen to believe it is, because the master plan says one major thing. We are a rural area, we love it that way, and we wanna try to keep it that way as best we can.
Yes.
Without, overdoing it.
they're only as good as they are upheld. They're only as good as they're used. When they're sat on the shelf and get dusty, no, they're pointless, they're a waste of
We
money.
talked about that last.
But
week.
when they become an active part of your
Yeah.
legislating, they probably work pretty good.
As a planning body, if I were to ask each one of you individually how you envision Smithfield Township to be in 20 years, could you each give me an answer?
I can.
Exclusive of a plan, just individually, the way this body administrates now, is there a vision for the way the township's gonna look in 20 years that you can provide, that is
Yes.
actually detailed?
Well,
I don't mean to be argumentative, I'm just really curious.
from my perspective, we can only do so much because the municipal planning code by the state of Pennsylvania says that you have to allow all of these uses somewhere in your township. So somebody, fortunately, I don't know, X number of years ago, said, let's slice the township into different zones and say, okay, the cookie factory only go in M1 and the church can go here and, to try to segregate things based on use, and that was done. And that's what we have to follow.
Yeah, but the Commonwealth says that if you wanna have a topless, dance place, you should be able to have it in any number of those zones.
I don't
Not
think it
just
says
one.
any number of zones, it says
You
it
don't
has
have
to
to have
be
a
allowed.
separate zone for that.
It has to be allowed in a zone,
It has to
right
be
now it's
allowed.
in a zone.
Yeah.
And there's criteria that it has to be 1,000, I don't know what the numbers are, X number of feet from a church, X
Yeah,
number of feet from residential.
Yeah.
Which we tried to do is to pigeonhole it into a specific location.
No,
So what we're saying is, yes, we all have a vision of what we want the township to be, but our hands are tied because the zoning has to allow things to happen.
Sure.
And as Robert said, if a developer comes in and they are allowed to put a data center in someplace because it's a use that should be done, then we can only allow it with certain criteria.
if you wanna go to war over this issue, go to Harrisburg, because
But-
that's where
No,
the
no, no, no.
MPC has originated.
No.
That's the way I look at it.
Oh, that is locally,
Well,
because
It's
that
not local.
MPC
It's a
thing
big
is a
bureaucracy.
local pain in the ass.
It's a
The
big bureaucracy.
MPC is a thing that dictates, just as David said, what we consider, how we consider it, and how much we can do. We are limited. Our wings are clipped.
I don't know, I don't buy the clips, I'm sorry.
What would you suggest we do?
Incrementally have amongst this body, have an idea, have a vision for the way the place is gonna look.
And we did that about
Wait a minute, let me
10
finish.
years ago, we had
Let me
a
finish,
consultant come in.
please, let me finish. Incrementally, a vision so that you could move not just this body, but all the bodies in chorus in the township, moving towards a common goal. Have a vision, and it's the plan, the comprehensive plan has got its own issues, but the people who are administering day to day, week to week, you guys. The whole township might have a vision for the way you want the county, the township to be, and have. And reach out to the public and say, what do we want here? And have a vision rather than, and I know you're constrained by all the laws and the zones and everything, but over 20 years, you can make a difference. Not just you specifically, but the whole township can help shepherd the township forward in an organized fashion. I go to all the meetings and I see.
We did that. We did a valiant attempt at that when we switched to the ED zone as opposed to the B1 and C1 and all that. Because the vision that we had was to try to create a walkable village community. That was the vision that we had consultants in. And it all started with the conversations at the Marshall Creek facility. Back when LTS was trying to develop the Mountain Manor project. That got us thinking, what do we want for our township? And that created the idea of the ED zone. What we're trying to do is to eventually get to a point where, people could ride a bicycle down Milford Road, which is why we always want to get sidewalks. And people could walk, and there could be residences above with, mom and pop shops on the bottom. That's what we were trying to promote. At the same time, working with our hands tied by the MPC requirements for warehouses, data centers, all of these things that we don't want in a rural community, but we're forced to have. We're forced to have.
I think provision for. I think from the supervisor's point of view, we just acted with a very simple viewpoint of this. And the ED zone was part of that, which is to say, force density into specific areas and corridors and preserve open space.
Right.
And preserve nature as much as we can,
Right.
the rest of it.
Yeah, but you can only do that by purchasing the land. If there's a piece of land that is an ED, you can't tell them they can't develop it.
No, but we can say the ED zone, which we've done, is for density development. We can say it leaves that.
Right.
And our other zones are what they are, single residence.
The vision, if you recall, the vision was mixed use. The trick here, the trick in the ED is mixed use. I think, to me, that was the thing that rang a bell most with me. So you could then combine, as Scott said, and as David has said many times, and Robert has said.
And by the way, there's
These little
another,
village concepts where you have mom and pop stores on the bottom and mom and pop live above it. Sort of. And there are spaces in between, distances in between, green space. I've been
The
talking about this so
point I
much.
made starting, my initial point was that I literally believe this community has an idea of how it might like to live as well. You are the instrument of administration. But if the community is all talking about this, the way that the comprehensive plan worked, there was a lot of community outreach in the creation of that. And it was really good feedback, a whole lot of it. And I'd be curious how many of you actually read the comprehensive report. But if there's a general consensus of opinion, including a lot of back and forth, how do we want to live in 20 years? We don't need to have a plan, but we might have a vision that actually can make incremental progress.
How about a map as to what it should look like
Yeah,
with our ideas, how the township should develop? And it can be shown on a map rather than a comprehensive plan, because a
right,
comprehensive plan.
not comprehensive, but
But if you have a map where we could show how the town will develop over years, I think that would be more beneficial than trying to, because that's a roadmap
It's
right
a good
there.
idea.
And it has you'll have all the buildings situated where you want them and how they should be laid out. Okay, in the future, rather than, because then you could have this. There's probably a software program that will do that
Yeah,
and show you where the streets and sidewalks and what the town will look like.
and it needs to be dynamic over time.
Exactly.
It's a good project for the environmental,
It's
advisory.
for the whole township.
Exactly, we can take
It's
action
for
on
the
that.
whole township.
We have a
It's not just
township map.
HVAC.
Well,
No,
if someone's got-
There is an official map that shows the areas.
Right there.
Yeah, we do that.
Okay.
I'm just, I go to these meetings, I see you guys doing your work, it's great.
No, it's great because I think what happened today is that we are coming to a consensus that we want to maintain Smithfield the way we come to know it, and we don't want it to change. But we don't want to rule out the ability for the town to grow.
It's gonna change.
It
But it
will,
should change.
but it could be the peripheral, it could be that density one place and the peripheral is that quiet, okay? That quiet town where we can walk, ride a bicycle, go to the park.
Intention is a very powerful thing.
Julia, would you do me a
And
favor?
jump on this, jump.
Would you send
We
an
don't have
email
any access to the Delaware.
out to all the commission members with links to the comprehensive plan so we can read it? And also to the data center, whatever we have now on that, an ordinance or whatever.
Mhm.
And if Alex is working on it, you know, what he started with and where he's going.
Thank you very much.
All right, I think we resolved it. Now they can move to adjourn. I second.
Oh, wait.
All right.
Oh, my God, this is.